Returning to our top story tonight, the markets. Now, just shows you, we are just 24 minutes away from the end of the closing of the trading day. We had been off 924 points. It is significant that we've now pulled back a bit, not much. And I guess the issue is, have we sort of hit an equilibrium for the rest of the day, or do we see a tumble as people close out before? The reason about huge concerns on the Chinese property developer, it's Evergrande's, and the scramble to avoid default. Also on investors' mind, the Fed will meet. We had weak job numbers, and it's throwing doubt on whether the Fed's going to begin trimming the bond purchases. A quick rebound maybe on the horizon. Manpower is predicting an unprecedented labour market recovery in the next quarter. Jonas Prising is the chief executive of Manpower Group. He joins me from Wisconsin. I think you're our second guest today from Wisconsin. So clearly it's all happening in Wisconsin. But I think you get a much better perspective on what's happening in the real economy, where the further you go from the two coasts towards the centre. But do you see this rebound in jobs continuing?
The survey we just released, Richard, shows very robust employer hiring intent here in the Midwest, here in the United States, but frankly also globally. So it continues to point to a very strong labor market recovery in terms of employers' desire to increase their workforce. At the same time, shortages in terms of finding that workforce are also very high across the world. So that is going to be the conundrum that employers are faced with. They want to hire more workers, but they're having a really tough time finding them.
So why? I mean, the conundrum in the US is this difficulty of finding workers, but at the same time, we're told that the number of jobs and the number of people seeking jobs is still elevated. So I don't, and even as the unemployment benefit extra money stops, where is the three-card trick here?
Well, that is one of the anomalies of this pandemic. We had anomalies going into the pandemic. And here in the US, during the months of April and March of last year, we lost 20 million jobs. 14 million of those have come back, but 6 million of the workforce that was there before the pandemic is still sitting on the sidelines. And the same is true in most of the developed world. Of course, in the developing world, vaccination access is limiting the ability to come back in full force. But between child care concerns, continued healthcare concerns, and an unprecedented policymaker response to the pandemic means that many people are still waiting on the sidelines before they re-engage in the workforce.
And as we look at this, at what point do you think, on a bigger issue, never mind the Dow is up, the dollar is down, on a bigger issue, at what point do we recognise the acceleration of digitization that took place during pandemic that has now accelerated the change in the composition? In other words, we knew it was coming, Jonas, but now we have a workforce where many people are simply not qualified for the new jobs.
I would say, Richard, though, that is still premature to think of this as being part of this current shortage, being part of the structural change that was occurring before the pandemic and carried on and was accelerated during the pandemic, because we are too far behind still in terms of workforce participation rates across the developed world to be able to say that it's all due to the skills shortages, because many of the skills shortages you are seeing come from hospitality, leisure, travel industry, all things that are still related to the pandemic. And certainly the emergence and the resurgence of the Delta variant is also causing hesitation. So I don't think that the current shortages can be attributed to that, but clearly this is a trend that will continue to impact labor markets long term. And that's why companies are increasingly focusing on reskilling and upskilling their workforces as they look ahead and see those changes.
As each month's numbers come in, Jonas, we'll need you to help us interpret them. I'm grateful for your time today. Thank you, sir.